So I'm doing office hours tonight, but I just got a bee in my bonnet that I wanted to jump on and and share some books. So I just decided to randomly go live. So first, I think I'll share the books that are in the spring catalogs that are coming out today. So if you're seeing a recording of this, I'm recording it on February 4th, which is my friend Yvette's birthday. Shout out Yvette. And I've got a little stack of 5 books that come out actually today. So they're available today. And the first of them is a set of these little board books by John Klassen. And I mean, who does not love John Klassen? So these, but I even have a post-it on it to show that it's being published today. So John Klassen is probably one of the best gifts to gifted kids that children's literature has produced in the last 50 years. Like, he's so fantastic. And in this series of little board books, I have Your Island, Your Farm, Your Forest. He follows a trope, a pattern in it that is delightful. So they all start, this is your sun, it is coming up for you. Isn't already I'm sold, right? And of course, his expected fabulous kind of primitive illustration style. This is your palm tree. It can go over by the sun. And in this book about the island, you slowly get this island built. All these little things get added. And some of them are just so cute. Like, and this is your bird. He flies away sometimes, but he always comes back. It's so adorable. And when you get to the end, then you have your whole island, and then the sun goes down. Remember, it started with the sun coming up. Now the sun goes down. Everyone is closing their eyes. And then I love this. Now your island is asleep. Now you can sleep too, and think about what you will do there tomorrow. And then the last picture is just a no-word layout of this island. And all 3 of these books are very much like this. Your farm, this is your sun, it is coming up for you, right? So they all start the same, and they actually all end the same as well. They end with this, now your farm is asleep, now you can sleep too, and think about what you will do there tomorrow. And then a layout of the sleeping farm. Such a delight. But all the way through, this is so cute. Here is your truck. It is a good truck. It's so cute. Anyway, your island, your farm, your forest. If you know anybody with a child who would benefit from a board book, this is the set. I absolutely love these. It says ages 2 to 5. I think, I mean, I have a 9-month-old granddaughter. I think she might be getting these. They are so cute. On the back, it says, these are for Augie. And I just an absolute delight. Right now, it is just these 3. I hope, John Klassen, if you happen to see this, please do more. Please do, like, this is your school, this is your grocery store, this is your house. I can give you ideas, although I have an idea. You have plenty of ideas. So one thing I like about the set is that they did make them all the same size. What is it when they have a series and they're not the same size book? That should not be allowed. All right. Next is if you've followed me talking about books, then you've seen me talk about how much I want to see good quality books in this kind of not early chapter reader, but after that. So not necessarily the easiest chapter books, but not, I need a word for it. These are like books for young readers, but they're not picture books, but they have a lot of pictures. They have a lot of pictures. They have big font. They have lots of white space. So they are a really nice next step for after a picture book, but before you're ready for Boxcar Children, right? So you've got a lot of illustrations. This book I've been looking forward to, not just because of this beautiful purple cover, and actually the cover illustrations are quite delightful, but this book, Fairy Door Diaries, Eliza and the Fairy Flowers. This book is written by Megan McDonald, who wrote the Judy Moody series. And so I think this is going to be great. It says, enter the enchanting and enchanted world of Eliza, who longs to believe that pixies, elves, brownies, hobgoblins, and the like are real. Now imagine Eliza's delight when she discovers that a bit of fairy dust and a tiny handmade door can magically transport her to the land of the fairies. I asked the publisher for this copy. All the books you're seeing today have been given to me by the publisher in exchange for my honest opinion. But in all honesty, I only request books that I think will be good. So if you always hear me talk about books and be like, oh, I love this book, I love this book, it's because I went into it with my eyes wide open. And this is one that I chose because I felt like it had that kind of cottagecore vibe that is mostly for adults, but I've seen a couple of children's books with it recently, and I absolutely love it. It's also a great introduction to fantasy for younger readers. So this is so cute. Look at chapter 7, being that Eliza is in for a bad spell. Now, I actually have a granddaughter named Eliza, so I think that book may need to go to Eliza, although she's only 2, so she will not be reading it anytime soon. This book, I wanted a copy of because I love Chloe Savage's other book that she wrote, The Search for the Great Arctic Jellyfish. This book is called The Search for Carmela, and it is the subtitle is What Mystery Lurks in the Deep. So this is a book about, it says, ever since Dr. Rose was a little girl, she's loved the sea and listening to fisher folks' stories about the weird and wonderful creatures living there. Now, as a marine biologist, Dr. Rose dreams of finding a great mysterious beast. Legends say it has enormous crimson tentacles and roams the deepest, darkest oceans. They call it Carmela. And so you see this story beautifully illustrated, just absolutely beautifully illustrated, about a marine biologist who obviously loves everything about the sea. I really love books that ask young readers to follow the story along. So we're following illustration and we're following text as it moves across the page. I think this is a really great reading exercise for kids. I know I'm like blocking my light when I hold the book up, but you'd rather see the book than me. And so there's just some wonderful illustrations along with this great story. And I think, we're going to have Women's History Month. And these are the kind of books that are great for that, where even when they're fiction, and as this one is, right here, she's like, Carmela, where are you? Even when they're fiction, they're sending the idea, right? Even though this person isn't real, it's like, well, women can also be marine biologists. And I love the way it ends. Science is magic. Isn't that a delight? Science is magic. So The Search for Carmela by Chloe Savage, I think a winner this year, picture book. Also notice just its height. It's a little taller. I'll hold it up next to another one that's coming out. And you'll see that it's a little taller. And so it's just a little bit, it's a little narrower, a little taller. Sometimes that's great. Sometimes for me as a teacher, this is a problem for me because it doesn't necessarily fit on my bookshelf in my classroom. The next 2 books I'm going to show are ones that are not out until February 18th. So these are not yet available, but they will be. So this first one is by Jason Cockcraft, and it is called Night Walk. Now, one of the styles of books that I very much like and seek out in picture books are books about families, especially multi-generational families, multicultural families. I love books about families because we know that, and I've written about this in books I've written, that one of the things that makes our kids more resilient is hearing stories about their families. Not the stories that are like, oh, our family is so amazing, our family is the best family, nothing bad ever happens to us. Not those kinds of stories, but the stories of our family has faced hard things, but we face it together and it all ends up working out okay in the end. Or we've had some really hard things happen, some things we may never get over, but we stick together as a family and we're here for each other. The reason that I want books about lots of different kinds of families and multi-generational families is I feel like those books are more likely to spark those kinds of conversations. Those books are the kinds of books that will spark a grandparent to tell a child a story about something that happened. And I'm already noticing this with my own grandchildren, that they want to hear these stories. They want to hear the stories about when their dad was little. I have all boys. So they want to hear the story about when their dad was little. They want to hear the story about when I was little. They want to hear the story about my own grandmother. So I love these stories for this. Night Walk is an absolutely beautiful book about a boy and his grandfather who go on a walk, and they're trying to find the grandmother's favorite place. I thought the illustration, you know what, I'm going to hold it up again. I don't know if it's coming through on the, but do you see how it makes it look like the light from the outside star is coming through, or the moon? I love illustrations that let you sink into them a little bit. And this book has that. And they're going on a nighttime walk. And they're talking about the grandma who has passed away. And they're looking for her favorite places on the walk. And they see hedgehogs. Oh, grandma loved hedgehogs. Maybe this was her favorite place. Oh, once we saw a fox here. I think that might be grandma's favorite place. And this author is from New Zealand. And it is just truly a delight. I knew I was going to love this book. And when it came, I knew it would. And then I love how it ends. Look at this. Whenever you think of grandma, think of this view, because her favorite place was right here, watching the sunrise and a new day begin. And now maybe it can be our favorite place too. What a delightful, precious book. And if you have a child or know a child who has lost a grandmother, then this might be a really delightful gift. So again, Jason Cockcraft, he's from New Zealand, lives in England, a beautiful book, a social emotional learning book. It will be going on my Amazon list of books I recommend for social emotional learning. The next one, also coming out February 18th, is a nonfiction picture book, perfect for Women's History Month, The Girl Who Tested the Waters, Ellen Swallow, environmental scientist. So this book was written by Patricia Danielle and illustrated by Yunyi Wu. I hope I pronounced her first name correctly. I love these illustrations in this book because they remind me of the illustrations, the old Garth Williams illustrations from Little House on the Prairie. Also the old, like, do you remember those what was that guy's name? Sid Hoff, who illustrated like those old, they weren't little golden books. They were like they were like Dr. Seuss books. And they were drawn with this beautiful, like, crayon colored pencil look. So this is a story about actually an environmental scientist from a long time ago. She pioneered like science education for women. She was born in 1842. So I love this book because not only of the beautiful illustrations, which I've already mentioned, and not only just because of the topic, but I also really like that we can start having books that are perfect for Women's History Month that are just really good for any time. And that we don't have to say, well, this is Women's History Month, so we're going to talk about women scientists. That it just becomes a part of the picture book library in our classroom or in our home. And I really liked this one because of how old it was, but how old she was from 1842 is when she was born. I think I mentioned that. But also because then this becomes a great conversation starter about why would it be that people might not think that girls could learn about science, and do we still see that, and what are some attitudes about girls in science now? The other thing I like about it is that it's great nonfiction text, and finding great nonfiction text at the picture book level is important to me as a teacher. Okay, so those are ones coming out February 19th. Now I gotta lean down for the rest of them. One of them just arrived today. And this book goes on sale, it says February 25th. So this one isn't going to be available for a few weeks. This book is by Rhonda Armitage. It's called To the End of the World, Far, Far Away. And it's illustrated by Victoria Turnbull. Now, this book I wanted because I love this kind of a more traditional picture book. I think, sorry, I need a way to do it that doesn't block my own light here, I guess. Hi, friends. I like this traditional picture book style. Look at this. Echo, turn on the lights. Maybe if I had some overhead light, I'd get less dark when I move the book. This traditional picture book, Echo, turn on the lights. This is the kind of book I feel like we maybe have less of than we used to, and where it's just like very few words on each page, but beautiful photo spreads. And this one kind of reminds me of Runaway Bunny. And it's like, where will you go? I'm going to go to the end of the world, far, far away, and you won't see me anymore. Won't you be sad when I'm gone? And then the mom says, I'll be so sad. I'll cry night and day. I'll cry so much that my tears will make a great sea. Right? I think you can see where it's giving those Runaway Bunny vibes. And after that, will you still be sad? I think it's so cute. It's just such a delightful story, beautifully illustrated. Again, you know how I am. If there's a book, I don't care how good the text is. If it's a book for children that does not have great quality illustrations, I am not here for it. And then at the end, once upon a time on another day, shall we go together? What a sweet story. Absolutely, absolutely love it. Another New Zealand author who currently lives in England. So I don't know what is going on. All the New Zealand authors moving to England, but To the End of the World, Far, Far Away. I think this would make a really wonderful baby gift. Really wonderful baby gift. All right, I got one more stack. I've got a stack here of 5 more books that are coming out this spring that I've been super interested in. This one I was interested in because I had received another one like this, Detector Dogs and Dynamite Dolphins. There's also another one, Calculating Chimpanzees, Brainy Beans, and Others. And these are nonfiction books, and they are perfect for like 5th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade science teachers, because they've got like pretty short chapters so a kid can learn, but there's still illustrations, but there's also a lot of information. So they're really good nonfiction books, and they've got color around the outside, keeps kids kind of flipping through. There's a lot of pages here, but there's a lot going on in here. There's a lot of information. They're a longer book. I would not call this a picture book. One of the things that I very much appreciate about these books is at the end of them, they have a tremendous bibliography. So it's a great way to find more books. But also it has this for further exploration section. And in these further exploration, for each chapter, it gives more things that you could read. So for someone like me who specializes in gifted and talented kids, this is like a perfect thing where I could pull up an article that a kid could read if they were interested in it. And so they're mostly websites, and some of them are YouTube videos. And so it's really helpful. They also have, I mentioned the great bibliography, and then they have an index, so it's easy to find the way around. But this is the 3rd in the series so far. I hope they keep making them. Christina Couch and Daniel Duncan is the illustrator, but Christina Couch, I am in love with these. I get them, I review them, and I pass them along to my friend Leslie, who teaches 6th grade science, because they are fabulous for that. All right, another nonfiction book for the younger crowd. This is The Brilliant Brain, How It Works and How to Look After It by Dr. Rupa Farooqui, illustrated by Viola Wang. And this is a very short picture book, and it is very simple. It's also a little bit on the smaller side. And so it goes through the brain, like what does the brain do? And it has the real names for stuff. This is the cerebrum, right? And it says, and it even has the lobes. This is the frontal lobe, the occipital lobe. It talks about nerves, which is very important when you're talking about the brain. It's a simple illustrative style. It's not overly done, but you can learn a lot in this book. Like, it's a nice introduction to it. And then in the end, tips on how to keep your brain healthy. So this one is actually going to go to my granddaughter's 1st grade classroom. And I think this is a great introduction to the brain for young children. with some nice illustrations and just enough information that they feel like they learned something without being overwhelmed. So this is a win. Okay, the next book is The Crane and the Keeper, and this is published by the Smithsonian, and they have been putting out some wonderful titles. So this book is by Meg Pincus, and it's illustrated by Gillian O'Mara, or O'Mara. They'll pull my Irish card. And this was a crane that was arrived at the National Zoo. So this is a true story about a crane who arrived at the National Zoo, and she was unusual because she had been raised by humans, and so she didn't really know how to act like a crane. And so because of that, it caused her big problems. And she's a white-naped crane. And she was 24 years old. And it goes back and tells a story about how she was hatched and how she imprinted on a human. And so she thought she was a human. And then how Christopher Crowe, who was only 4 years older than Walnut, taught her how to be a crane and saved her life, essentially. And so look at, he like dresses up like a crane. It is such a wonderful, wonderful story. And it gets into quite a bit of science because she couldn't reproduce like normal because of this situation as well. And so he got her eggs to another place where they could figure out how to have chicks. And it looked like this is just so beautiful. And then I love this line. This is how it ends. If humans harm wildlife species, then humans must save them. That just gives me all the chills. It has Q&A with him at the end, and then more about what's going on, and then the further exploration, which, as you already heard, I'm a big fan of. There's also a glossary and a bibliography. So this book is fantastic for teaching text structures. Now, I'm not talking about text structures like cause and effect. I'm not talking about those. I'm talking about text structure in what we find in text, like what kinds of sections in nonfiction books do we find? And so this one, absolutely beautiful, The Crane and the Keeper. So wonderful. Ooh, Melissa, I didn't see your comment. Which book? I'm getting this for our systems unit next year. Which book were you talking about? The Brilliant Brain? Is that the one you're talking about? Tell me. I see your comment in the chat, but I didn't see it. Now, the last two, I don't know what book I was talking about when you said that. The last two books go together. And these are books that I was very excited to see come out because they are children's picture books about the Holocaust. And if there was a topic needing to be covered for a very young reader, it was this. And so I am so excited about these two. This book is called One Day by Michael Rosen and Benjamin Phillips, a true story of survival in the Holocaust. So it is about Eugene Handschuh, who survived, and it tells a little bit about this, and then this brick wall illustration. What is interesting to me is that the use of color and like sepia tones to teach tone. This is a book I would use even with older readers to teach tone, and how the illustrator is actually using color to help teach tone. And so it's about a family of Hungarian Jews who were living in Paris in the Marais. And in December of 1942, then they are taken to a concentration camp, a work camp. And it goes through, and the idea is, how do we get through it one day at a time? And that is echoed over and over and over in the book, that repetition, that pattern. How do you get through? You get through one day at a time. Absolutely wonderful. And then at the end, they're actually reunited. They're separated in the camps. They're reunited. And you get this absolutely heart-wrenching moment where they find each other, and they never thought they would see each other again. So And that is, it's just so amazing. It's just so amazing. And at the very end, picture of the concentration camp, and it says, and that's a true story because this is a true story. Remember, get through one day and then on to the next, one day at a time, one day after another. I mean, a keeper, an absolute keeper. You've heard me say, oh, so-and-so's getting this book. So-and-so's getting that book. This book is staying right here in this house. And so is this one, The Story of the House That Hid Anne Frank. Now, one of the things that I'm a big fan of is what I call a book flight. And a book flight is when you have a picture book, a chapter book, and then an adult book. And everybody in the family is reading a book about the same topic at their own level. And so to me, this is a perfect book flight when an older child is reading The Diary of Anne Frank, which I would say would be appropriate for maybe 7th grade gifted reader, 8th grade good reader, 9th grade on-level reader. And then for an adult, another YA book I would recommend there, Salt to the Sea. And then for an adult, any one of the any one of them, the Lilac Girls, whatever. Hi, Teacher Loves Books. I love doing a book flight because I feel like a lot of times we are not talking about the books in our families enough. And we can, if we're reading a book, if you as an adult pick up a book, see if there is a companion book. So that's what I've been looking for with these. And this book is by Thomas Harding. It is published in cooperation with the Anne Frank House, where I have been, and it's illustrated by Britta Teckentrup. And so it's The House on the Canal. And if you've ever been to the Anne Frank House, you will know it is right on the canal. It has a photo of the actual house, which of course you can still go in. And it says, in the middle of Amsterdam, next to a canal, stands a tall, narrow house. It was built almost 400 years ago. And it goes through about how the family ended up in this house and how they ended up having to go into hiding. And what's really kind of unique about it is it tells a lot of the story from the perspective of the house. Oh, we were the lucky ones. She just started reading. Teacher Likes Books just started reading We Were the Lucky Ones. I read that too. And, it is a hard read, but it is so worth it. That book has really stuck with me. In fact, one of the things that's interesting about that book is that at the end, it tells what happened after the story closes. And that part has stuck with me. I've not, and I know Teacher Likes Books. I know some of you are joining in are like, what is she doing? I thought her office hours were tonight at 7, and they are, but I just wanted to get on and talk about books. But look, it's told, I was talking about how it's told from the perspective of the house. So, which is also perfect for depth and complexity perspective. So it says, the house shivered, empty and cold. So we get some personification, anthropomorphization of the house. And then the house catches fire. I'm flipping through to see. Okay, so then here is the story of then Mr. Frank ends up purchasing the home, and that's his daughter, Anne, and that's them in front of the house. That's actually the cover illustration as well, before they go into hiding. And then they go into hiding. So I really like how it shows the history of the house before, that this home existed, that it had a history before. And even though now it's best known as the house that saved Anne Frank, at least temporarily, it had its own story before that. I love that it says this: the city was no longer safe for the girl with the sweet smile. She hid in the house with her father and mother and sister and 4 others. And it talked about how people helped them. And how in the warehouse part of the home, people were still working and they didn't even know that they were there. And then it talks about how someone turned them in and to the Nazis, and they were taken away from the house. And after they left, 2 women went in and found her diary. And then how the house fell into disrepair. One of the things that's kind of handy is in the upper corner of it, in the upper right hand corner of it, it gives the year. It gives like the decade, like when was this happening? So in the 50s, it falls into disrepair. In the 60s, how Otto Frank works to restore the house. And then how people come now to visit it. And I absolutely love this. In the back, it has more information. I think it would lend itself to some wonderful stuff. They also, the same author illustrator combination, wrote a book I have not read called The House by the Lake, the true story of a house, its history, and the four families who made it home. And I think that would be wonderful. So these are two wonderful Holocaust books, which is not something that you can frequently say for picture books for young children. But I think both of these are going to be absolutely wonderful. And that is all I have for you. So I'm just going to quickly go through the titles again, in case you were joining in later and wanted to see. So I have The House on the Canal, about the Anne Frank house. One Day, about Hungarian Jews surviving the Holocaust, with a beautiful message, a truly beautiful message. The Crane and the Keeper, a true story, another true story about a crane who it was raised by humans, imprinted on them, and how Keeper was able to make her a crane again, with another beautiful message. The Brilliant Brain, a very early introduction to neuroscience. Another nonfiction, Innovative Octopuses, Half-Brain Birds, and More Animals with Magnificent Minds. The brainiac emphasis for me makes this perfect, but a great, and part of a series, right? So part of a series if you like it. To the End of the World and Far, Far Away, kind of a modern Runaway Bunny feel. Absolutely love this, a total delight and a perfect gift for a new baby. The Girl Who Tested the Waters, also a true story about an environmental scientist named Ellen Swallow, who was born in the mid-1800s, in 1842, and pioneered science education for women. Night Walk, a very precious, precious story about a young boy and his grandfather who go for a walk looking for what they think was the grandmother who has passed away, her favorite place, a true delight. Fairy Door Diaries by Megan McDonald, who wrote the Judy Moody series. Beautiful little kind of cottagecore vibe introduction to fantasy, light fantasy for young readers. This is higher than a picture book, but not too overwhelming for a young reader. So this is a nice one. And then last, a fiction story, The Search for Carmela, by Chloe Savage, who also wrote The Search for the Giant Arctic Jellyfish, which I also love. So some great books coming out this spring. More will be coming. This is the time of year. This happens now, and then it happens again in the fall when UPS is showing up at my house almost every day with books. And so more will be coming. I hope that you found at least one title in here that interests you for your home or your classroom library. And for those of you who haven't had enough, I'll be back in a couple of hours to do office hours. So I will see you guys then. Have a great day and happy reading.